your homeworks that you submitted yesterday. So number 14, we have our table. Your table could have included any of those. So this table is a little bit more inclusive. You only had to have 6 points. So this one has roughly 10. Your graph sketch should have looked roughly like this. You had a 0 over here at -3 and a 0 at 0. So you want to make sure you show both roots on your graph. It's odd with an even exponent, so it starts low and heads high. Okay, here's 15. Okay, so same idea. In 15, we have a table. You wanted to show that there was a root between -2 and 0. And then you also were showing that there was a relative min at 0 and a relative max at -1. And you got all of your key pieces of information from the graphing calculator. Okay, 16. So we have the table, here's our graph, and then you have your roots at -5, 0, and 5. A max, I don't know why it does that, a max at -3, and a min at 0 and at 1, or between 0 and 1. If you did it on your calculator, you would have gotten the actual decimal. Okay, and then we jump down to 17. So in 17, this graph was a little bit more unique. It's sort of flatlined in here. You had a root at 1, between -1 and 0, and between 4 and 5. And then for part C, you had a max at 1/3 and a min at 3. So then we jumped over to 18. So we have a min, we have a max, we had a 0, 0, 0. $19. This one is a little bit more. Your mins and maxes are perfect at 2 and 3. But your roots are between -2 and -1, and between 0 and 1, and between, 2 and 3, and then your max and mins were at decimals. Okay, and then 20. And 21. Now, does anybody have any questions on how to get these on our calculator? Are we okay? After doing like these examples, you now have like the steps down. You know it has to go to the left, to the right, or to above the 0, below the 0, etc. So everybody all good on their calculators? All right. So then we jumped over into lesson, well, I guess there's the word problems from here. But we also jumped over into lesson 6.5. But let's check over our word problems. So for 22, the first thing we were doing was graphing that. Oh, it says in the answer. I did not see it. Well, we'll go back over. So here's just your parts to part C. And then here's part B. Sorry, the online answer keys are a little goofy. Okay, and then down for 23, you can kind of see that answer is actually there. You have a max at negative 2.73, a min at 0.73. 24 has no max or min. And then 25 and 26. You have a max in 25 at 1.34, no mins, and a max in 26 at negative 1.87. And again, a min at 1.51. Okay, for the next part, a lot of us did pretty well on 20 through 28, so let's go and check those answers. Okay, so for number 20, you took out a GCF of 2C minus 3D, and then you wrote the rest of the difference of cubes formula, which was 4C squared plus 6CD plus 9D squared. 21 was a sum of cubes with an extra x. So to take out an x, and then you had to take 4x plus y, and then do your sum of cubes for the squared part. In 22, you took out a GCF of a squared, and then that left you with a sum of cubes and a difference of cubes. So you had to actually do it twice. So you had a minus b, a squared plus ab plus b squared, and a plus b, a squared minus a, b plus b squared. You could have also recognized a difference of squares and then factored it as two quadratics. 24, as many of you had, was prime. 25 was also prime. 26, you had to group these. So you wanted to either group them with all of the x's together and all of the y's. So that meant flip-flopping these two terms in here so that the y was with the y's and the x was with the x's. So then you were going to group the first three terms and the last three terms. And over here, that gave you GCFs with x. Over here, it gave you GCFs with y. And then you were capable of factoring the x and y. And then that left you with the F's, the G's, and the H's. Okay, 27. Very similar idea. You wanted to group it so all the X's were together and all the Y's. So it meant rearranging the terms. And in 29, you were just going to group 3's and 3's and take out your GCFs. All right, and then starting with 30, 30 picked up with the second part of 6-5, which was solving the quadratics. So if you need to see any of the work for any of these, I will gladly go through it. For now, here are just the answers. So in 30, you wanted to rewrite that as a quadratic. And then that gave you your 2 roots. And then you used the 2 roots to find the 4 roots. So there's 30, 31, 32. As well as 35, and I'll show you 33 and 34 in a second. So again, are there any of those questions that you wanted to see worked out? Okay, here's your 33 and 34. And then going over, we can check 36, 37, and 38 as well. So what we're going to do today is review 6-4 and 6-5. Make sure we really have our calculators down. Make sure we really have a good understanding of how to factor. We did spend a ton of time factoring in Chapter 5. So if you have your Chapter 5 notes and you have your factoring packets, factor by grouping directions are in there. Factoring quadratics is in there. So all of those techniques are coming back into play with everything we're using in class today. So what we're going to do is work on the 2 worksheets in your packet. There's the 6-4 and 6-5 practice worksheets. So I'm going to let you use the remainder of class time today to work on those, ask me questions on those. If you missed an answer from the homework, you can ask questions on that. And then tomorrow we'll go over those and then start lesson 6-6.